Hello everyone, Deb Floros, guest designer for Rings and Things. These gunmetal butterflies are so cool, and I've been really into butterflies, but they're kind of maybe not the perfect fall or winter design element, but I thought in a weird kind of way we could make them spooky for the spooky season. They're filigree and they're actually intended to be sew-ons. So they've got a couple of holes down the center where you can sew them on somewhere. But I like the idea of being able to use them in a jewelry design. So pink and black looks really cool for the spooky season. So I've got these 6mm agate beads and I thought they looked really cool with the gunmetal. So then I thought, let's embellish that filigree. So these prestige 4mm square spikes, they're flat backs, they're so cool, would look really cool on the butterfly. And I've got some 26 gauge wire. Now, you would probably do better to use 24 gauge wire for this project, but test that out, see if you like that better. So I've got some E6000. I'm going to start by gluing on those little spikes, and I'm going to put them onto the edges of the butterfly wings. And I thought that that made them look kind of, I don't know, like a spooky, diabolical butterfly. I don't know. Just go with me, guys. So I'm gluing those on and just kind of putting it towards the edge, but not quite on the edge. And once I've got it positioned correctly, I'm going to hold it for a little bit and then I'm going to let it dry. And then I'm going to place the other ones. I'm doing one on each top of the wing and one on each bottom of the wing, and just leaving enough space so that there's a hole towards the end of those top wings. So cool, so fun. And I'm just putting on just the tiniest bit of glue with a toothpick and placing it onto the bottoms. And you do want to hold just for a couple of seconds, few seconds to get it placed, and then it should dry with no problem and stay in place. So I'm placing that fourth one there, and then I'm going to let it have a little bit of time to dry. So you can let it sit overnight, that's probably best, or at least give it an hour or so to dry. So I'm just fanning that. Now I'm going to pull my beads off of the strand, put them into a little dish. They are so cool. And now my butterfly is dry. Oh, those spikes are so incredibly cool. The finish on them also kind of ties back to the colorful beads too. So I'm going to cut off about 8 or 9 inches of the 26 gauge wire. And again, you could probably do better with a 24 gauge. Pretty sure that it will fit through the holes of that filigree piece, but I'm putting it through the holes and then I'm crisscrossing in the back. And I'm going to hold with some fine chain nose pliers and wrap one wire around the other. So I'm going to give it several wraps. I want to get a nice chunky wrap in the back there. And then I'm going to snip off my excess. Now I'm going to create a loop because this will be the loop that I'm going to use to attach to some jewelry wire. So I'm using some round nose pliers and I'm getting some more wraps around that already sort of chunky wrap that's there. So just putting that wire around a few more times, and then I'm going to snip off my excess. Now I've got a nice loop there, and I'm going to set that aside. I've got some 19 strand beading wire and also some Toho 15-0 opaque black seed beads. And that's going to create some continuity for my design. So I'm using one of the 6mm stone beads, then 2 seed beads, and then another stone bead. So I'm just creating a pattern very, very simply and allowing the colors of these stones to do their magic. These beads are also faceted, so there's lots of color and texture, and I think they do look kind of spooky. I've seen a lot of pink in this year's spooky season decor that's out. So I'm putting my beading wire right through that loop, and I'm actually adding some larger seed beads around. So I've got some 11 O's, and I'm putting those around that loop. So the 15 O's are really small. The 11 O's are going to create a little bit of a nice frame and go under the filigree piece so that it won't cause any problems with the beads. So now I'm just adjusting the size to make sure that I've got the right number of beads on both sides and that bracelet is going to fit. Ooh, I love how that butterfly just kind of flares out there with those beautiful crystal spikes. So much fun. So I'm loving how that came out. I'm thinking too, I want to add one more of those spikes, and I'm going to add it up at the top center, almost as the butterfly's head. And I want to show you a second way to make a bracelet with these filigree pieces. This one's not my favorite, but it is another option. So test your beading wire before you start. Make sure that your beading wire will fit through the holes where you would normally do the sew in. So I am going to use 19 strand here, and I'm doing a pattern of 11 O's and the gemstone beads. And then when I get my correct number of beads on, I'm going to put that beading wire up through one hole. Then I'm going to add a couple of seed beads to go up top, so they'll kind of cover up the beading wire. You could actually do 3. It will create a little bit of texture because it will create a little bit of kind of a half loop. But I did 2, which shows off a little bit of the beading wire, totally fine. Then I'm going to push that wire back down through the second hole, and then I'm using about 5 of those seed beads on either side of the connection point up top. So I'll have some seed beads before I add additional gemstones. Now this is going to make it a little bit awkward looking when it's not on. So it's going to want to push the strands inward, but that doesn't bother me because when I'm wearing it, it will look great. Now I thought one more fun thing you could do is you could take a piece of that 26 gauge wire and push it through that little tiny loop that you created up top with those seed beads and the beading wire. And I string on one of my gemstones, and then I'm just going to wrap that bead on by wrapping the wires around in opposite directions and making the attachment of that gemstone. Pretty fun, pretty cool, different way to make this spooky butterfly bracelet. And you'll see the two look very, very different, but super fun. And I love the spiky flatbacks are so cool. All I'm going to do is use a simple French wire and lobster claw closure. So I'm creating a loop of French wire on one end, and then at the other end using French wire and crimp, and adding my lobster claw in the little loop. You could also add a jump ring to the loop on the other side if you'd like. I love how these came out. Super fun projects. I'm sure there are other ways you can use these fun filigree pieces, and you've got 12 in the package. You can find everything to make these fun spooky butterfly bracelets at ringsandthings.com. Thanks so much for watching.